Okay, so I'm gonna just refine this animation just a little bit. I'm gonna make a few tweaks and a few changes. Um, I'll just move a couple of things around. I think I'm gonna introduce a sky. And I think for the sake of providing a little bit of contrast here, I am going to introduce a couple of materials, just some really simple materials, and I can do that by double-clicking in the Material Manager. Whatever I get for a default, I'm going to put that on the sky. So I get a little bit more contrast there. Yeah, I think I'll go with that. And I'll just introduce a couple of colors, just really simple, flat colors. Maybe I'll choose a nice red. I'll introduce another color again just to get some contrast in here. We'll go with some kind of a blue. And what I'll do is I'll drop the red on the torus, the blue on the cube. I'll let the sphere default, and I'll just give that a real quick preview. I'll render a still frame just to see what I get. And so I have a really simple, again, just a really simple animation going on here. I'm going to adjust the plane, and maybe I'll make that 4,000 by 4,000 so it takes up a little bit more space. Maybe I'll even go a little bit bigger. Or maybe I'll just live with what I have. So now the easiest way to output this animation, there's a couple of different ways to do this. The simplest procedure is to make a preview animation. And we can do that by clicking on this middle render button and telling Cinema 4D to make a preview. Okay? So at this point, we've set up our animation, and if we want to render a still frame, we can advance the playhead to whatever frame we want to preview. We can click on the render button or Command R to render the existing frame. But in order to render out the animation, there's a couple of different ways to do it, and the easiest way to do it is to click on the center render button and choose to make preview. Now when you make preview, there's a couple of options. The make preview dialog box pops up. We're going to let the preview mode default to full render. That's full render with all the effects, all the lighting. There's software and there's hardware, and so what we want to do is we want to just do full render. That's the highest quality render we can achieve. If we're just testing out animations and our scenes get really complex and we want to render it really quickly, we can choose to do a hardware render, which is effectively what we're looking at when we preview the animation in the perspective viewport in Cinema 4D. It's not a full render, it's just the default render. We want to leave it at all frames. We could adjust our image size. In fact, I'm going to bump my image size from 320 up to 480, okay? And it's proportionally set, so it'll do 480 by 360. Everything else we're going to let default, and I'll say okay. If I wanted to, I could jump into the QuickTime options here and modify the QuickTime options, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. We'll take a deeper dive into that at a later time. So I'll say okay, and when I say okay, down in the bottom left-hand corner, it's going to calculate our preview. It's currently rendering our preview. It's going to take a little bit of time, but when that status bar reaches the end here, it's going to open up our preview in the Cinema 4D preview panel. So I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll open this back up when the rendering's done. So it only took about another 30 seconds, but what happened is the picture viewer, the preview in the picture viewer popped up, and what we're looking at is a temporary render. At this point, we could use the controls here to preview our render to see what we have, and we get just a real quick preview. Okay, and if we like what we have here, and I'll scrub the playhead, if we like this, what we can do is we can actually save this out as a movie. I can choose to File, Save As, and I can choose, by default, you might be looking at still image, and you might be looking at something like, oh, I don't know, TIFF. What I want to do is I want to, the type that I want to save out, I don't want to save out a single frame of this animation. I want to save the entire animation. The format that I want to save is a QuickTime movie, and just about everything else should be able to default. I want to save from frame 0 to frame 90, and that's our entire animation. Everything else looks pretty good. If I want to change my QuickTime options now, I could, or my file format options, I could. but just setting the file type to animation and the format to QuickTime Movie and hitting OK, we'll get prompted to save this file. And so it's currently set to be titled Preview. I'm going to call this Animation, and I'm going to save this to my project folder. So I'm going to go into my drive, into my class folder, into my project folder, and I'm going to create a new folder called Renders. And I'll call this Animation 01, and I'll save, and it'll take just a minute to save out the entire animation. I'm going to hide Cinema 4D. I'm going to go to my drive, my class folder, my project file, and then go into my renders folder and see what kind of animation I ended up with. So I'll double click, and now this is the actual movie from QuickTime. I'll hit play, and I'll preview my animation. Not super, excuse me, not super exciting in terms of the animation that I've created, but in really short order, I was able to prototype the animation, establish the pipeline, and save that out as a QuickTime movie. The only thing left to do at this point is I want to share this with the world. I'll take my hard work and I'll share that by going to Vimeo, logging in. Once I'm logged in, I can choose to upload, and I'll upload a video. I'll choose the file that I want to upload, and I'll go find the animation that I just made. So I'll find VCIL 2040, I'll find animation, renders, and I'll choose my animation.mov, and I'll open that up. So it'll take a short while for that animation to load. Once it uploads, it's going to take about another half an hour for Vimeo to process that movie, and in pretty short order we'll have that video live for everyone to see. So once the video uploads in Vimeo, you can go to My Videos, and this will be the most recent video. Now I had the option, and you can always rename the video. I left mine untitled accidentally, and so by clicking on the video, I do have the opportunity, once it's up, to modify that video if I want to. If I want to edit the title, I could choose the thumbnail to be used for that video, but for now, even though the video, Vimeo is telling me it's going to take about an hour to process this video, because I don't pay for the premium service, so I don't get real-time processing. It's a small price to pay for the service that they're providing. I do have a URL or a web address for that video, so I can copy that by highlighting it, Command-C to copy, and now I can distribute that back through Blackboard as a resource. So that's going to be the process and the procedure for this first assignment. You'll find inside Blackboard, just underneath Animation 05, the last presentation, you'll find a place to submit this along with the due date for the first project. And this is just a simple, fun project to experiment with to get the procedure and the pipeline down. And you know, feel free to create different variations on this and send your favorite variation through Blackboard. As always, make sure that you're posting work in progress along the way through the discussion board. And in this case, there's not going to be a whole lot of work in progress for this project, but I will encourage you for this project and every project to post your final presentation, not just in the Lessons tab where you turn it in as an assignment, but also post it in the discussion board so that other students can see your final work. So as we speak, I'm going to create the intro to animation discussion board, and I'll submit that, and I'll move that to the top of the stack here. So just before the bouncing ball animation, we'll do the intro to animation and post your final project here inside from Vimeo in the discussion board. So just to see that procedure all the way through, I'll be the first one to post. Even though my video is not processed, I'll copy the URL, I'll create a thread, and I'll say, here's my first. Here's my first animation for class. I'll sign my name, I'll post the URL, and I'll submit that. Okay, so if I go back to that, I can go down here and oops, I forgot to link that. I was hoping that Blackboard would auto link that for me. So I'll just jump in really quickly and I'll edit that. I'll highlight that content. I'll post it as a link. I still have that content copied, so I'll just paste it. And I'll tell it to open in a new window so that we're not looking at Vimeo directly in Blackboard or in the discussion board, and I'll let everything else just default. And I'll say submit, and I'll submit once again. And so now when I go back into the discussion board and I look at my first link here, I'll go down to the thread, and now I can click on that link and it opens up. Now, it'll take about an hour for that to post, so by the time you see this video, that video will exist. Have fun with this process. If you run into any questions about this, feel free to post those questions in the discussion board, in the intro to animation section, because we do want to post, the work that we've created and any questions and answers, or questions or answers that we might have come up with. So, and as is always the case, if you have any questions, post in the discussion board or contact me directly through email. And have fun with this project, and you'll have the rest of the week into next week to complete it. I will start posting the first major project in this class. That content will start rolling out at this point so that you can get a jump on that content if you're feeling ambitious and want to move forward at your own pace. So we'll catch up in the next presentation.